I guess if I describe the Kennedy Lakes to somebody, I would say it feels like a timeless place where it hasn't been touched by modern times. It feels like you're going back in time when you go there. In an age where we spend a lot of time inside and in front of our computers, it's nice to know that there are some places where we can have access, and gives us again this sense of wonder of nature, and because it feeds us in ways that's hard to describe. But I always come back with a lot of ideas, of course, for painting, but it brings also a sense of peace and sense of being able to accomplishment, get into a place like that on your own power, and you come back out of that, you'll be cleansed in one way or the other. So my name is Régent Roy, and I'm an artist. And over the years, I've been always looking for places, especially in New Brunswick, to paint, a specific landscape. And the Kennedy Lakes really fit the bill. When I saw that on the map, I really wanted to explore that area, and I've been going there regularly since.
My name's Ethan Wilkinson. I grew up doing a lot of outdoorsy hunting and fishing here in New Brunswick, and this was my first trip up to the Kennedy Lakes. The scenery is unreal. Like, when you wake up and you look across the lake and there's just a skim of fog rising with the sun, you see the little tips of boulders jutting out of the water here and there. It's gorgeous. There's not too many places in New Brunswick, I feel, where you get such an expansive view.
So to get into the Kennedy Lakes, which is really situated in the middle of nowhere in New Brunswick, right in the center, you have to take the 108, which is called the Renews Road, that cuts across New Brunswick. So you take that at one point, and you have to take a small dirt road off of that, off the 108. And then it brings you to a parking spot, but you don't see any lakes. So from that parking area, you have to take a small, maybe 300-meter portage to get to the first lake. And then from that lake, which is a small muddy lake, from there you take another portage, maybe a smaller one, portage, to get to what they call the main Kennedy Lakes. And then from there, you have access to other lakes if you want to take another portage to go beyond that. It's really a place made for a canoeist. There's no really other access than by canoe and by portaging. I guess one thing I would caution to is really look at your equipment, like a canoe. Even if you have a fairly light canoe, be sure it is something you can portage by yourself on your shoulders, and even check your equipment. Sometimes we just fill the canoe with stuff there, but you have to be sure you can take that all off and put in one bag and portage that, and that bag wouldn't be too heavy.
Making us look bad. Holy fuck. Woo.
Me and my loafers.
It's a big lake, and the way it faces, it's kind of oriented northeast. So if there a wind that day, you're gonna have a headwind right when you get to the main Kennedy Lakes. So you'll have to battle that. Whenever somebody, I plan a trip to go into the Kennedy Lakes, I'm trying to be sure to start early in the morning, so I'll have time to, get all those portages and that piling, and get to the campsite in the afternoon.
Hell yeah.
It's going to be low, but not that low. So once the campsite was set, the first thing I do is look around and see how the clouds are going and how the sun is. And that evening it was really nice. And even though I didn't have that much time, I really wanted to set out and try to, put in a painting that evening. And I'm glad I did.
There's nothing really more relaxing than sitting in front at the campsite on Kennedy Lakes and watching the fog rise off the lake while the steam rises off your cup of coffee and you're preparing for the day. It's almost like nature wants to recharge you.
The next morning, after paddling in and setting up the camp, was a nice bright morning, and really, you're eager to explore even more. So we left all our equipment there, kind of our base camp, and really wanted to explore further in, go deeper into the Canadian Lakes area. So what we did, we brought our canoe and portage, another small portage. It's kind of nice because it follows a small stream that flows in the Kennedy Lakes, and that brings you to the upper Kennedy Lakes. And it's a smaller lake, but it's quite scenic, and it's really worth exploring those areas also. It brings you new sceneries, mountains also, and rocks, and all different places are, I don't know, they're quite different from anything I've seen in New Brunswick. It's well worth exploring those areas.
Honestly, one of the coolest things to me about the upper Candy Lake was the amount of boulders. I know that kind of sounds silly, like, ooh, a bunch of rocks, but the sheer size of some of these rocks in their precarious locations just really gets you in the mindset of how is this place created? And it's a hill, but it's a hill completely made out of boulders.
What I find at that lake is really a feeling of remoteness, and you can see it in the rocks and the trees. You don't see many disruption that has been done there. You don't see that there's been any wood cutting there in that area. So it feels really remote. It feels really untouched, and that's kind of what I'm looking for when I'm painting.
Oh yeah, that's cold. Oh yeah, that's ice cold.
I think other people should visit the Kennedy Lakes to absorb that sense of remoteness. But when you get to experience the Kennedy Lakes, you almost push everything back and you're able to just breathe unpolluted air and not have to worry about what's it going to be like at work tomorrow. You're wondering, what am I going to find in the woods tomorrow? And it'll take you back to that almost like childlike wonder of just exploring and stress-free. Like, you don't have to worry about everything else that's going on. You can take a minute, spend some time in the wilderness, but at the same time in your own mind. Really filtering out what makes you happy and what you want to do in this world.
So the most interesting thing about the Kennedy Lakes, for me, I think it's the remoteness of the area. And once you get there, it feels like the area hasn't been touched for ages. And then just the way that there's many connected lakes there. You can go, easily go from one lake to the other with a small portage. It makes for a really great area to explore by canoe and by foot. Really, it's the only way you can really explore the area. And that's quite compelling for me. So other people can benefit from visiting Kennedy Lakes area by really have this connection with nature. And I can't imagine somebody coming out there not being changed a little bit, have a better understanding of the importance of keeping some areas of wilderness wild and free, so it will benefit everybody physically and emotionally also. It's really the antidote of a fast-paced life that we have. We need to cut wood, we need to have access to mines and stuff like that. That's kind of necessary to sustain what we have. But I hope that we continue to keep certain areas protected like this so that we can have that resource that is really essential for our well-being. So if ever somebody would like to, have more information about the area or my artwork, they're invited to reach out to me. I got a website which is fairly simple to memorize. It's just my name, rejean.ca. This is REJEAN.ca. So shoot me an email or anything, question, and you'll be able also maybe to find a few paintings or pictures there that I've took from the Kennedy Lakes protected area.